All
All
right, so we were
right, we're back. We had some internet trouble
rudely
there.
interrupted by
Yeah.
our crash here.
So it was
Anyway,
interesting
so
while
this
we were
is
getting the Zoom back up and running, the cat came and stole one of my canning rings. So I was like, oh, that explains how they keep ending up all over the house.
okay.
So anyway, I was talking just a little bit about if you were going to actually invest in canning, the one thing I would treat yourself to are these nice little plastic lids. They also make other types of them. This is the kind that I like because it's a lot nicer. Because once you pop these suckers, then you have to put the ring on and off to keep it on, and it's just easier. So,
Okay.
and also then if you can actually throw away your old lid and you don't have to remember not to put it in the dishwasher or something.
Okay.
Because if you have little kids in the house or something, sometimes it's just nicer to be like, all right, let's throw that away so that the kids don't accidentally, like I don't somehow get confused what my old lids are and my new lids. And yeah, so
Yeah.
but that's me. Actually, I bought a second set because I started out with just 4. I think now I have 8 of the plastic lids. Because once you open your food, so while we were down, I went to the fridge and I got, this is the cabbage I made a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I have it in the back of the fridge. Cause like I said, I'm not too sure how actual canning safe this recipe is, even though it led me to believe that it was. And it said without canning, it would last a month in the fridge. So I was like, okay, well, canning it'll definitely extend that life. And even though I said I would never use the wide mouth, apparently I decided to try it with this one. So I tried to see if one of the old jars would actually work. And I did this a couple weeks ago. The seal definitely went. The cat's behind the dishwasher now. I bet he's gonna try to steal this. But yeah, so my seal is nice and clean. Like there's no food around there. And so yeah, so that's the wide mouth.
Okay.
That's the cabbage. So I guess now that we have a nice good starting point, I'm just going to kind of walk you through basically what actually happens if you were going to can something. So I'm going to use the example, I think, of apple butter.
Okay.
Certain foods you can't make a good shelf stable butter out of. If you see pumpkin butter, if it's made by a corporation, I'd say it's fine. But if you see somebody in the neighborhood making pumpkin butter, you might want to steer clear of it because that is not a canning safe, like a water bath canning safe. Again, they may have a method, it may be fine, but that's where you need to be advised. But apples have been canned for the ages. You can can cinnamon apples, you can can applesauce, you can freeze applesauce, you can do apple butter, and that's what I used to do, and my family used to love my apple butter. So again, if we go back to some of the sizes of jars, see if I have it looks like all the big ones are actually dirty right now, but we'll use this one, which I said is not canning safe, but just for demonstration purposes, we will use it right now. So no, it's not even a good example of that anyway. So these are the sizes that I use. So this is what is known as the half jelly jar. And I like to have all sizes on hand because when you get towards the end, you might not have enough to fill this, or just throw it across the room.
Don't break it.
So yeah, this is the standard quart jar, right? No, these are pint jars. These are pint jars. So this is a half pint. This is a pint. I'm going to take the lid off just so that visually they all look the same. So pint, half pint, jelly jar, or a quarter pint. And actually we'll go like this for a second. There we go. And then I had a big one. So this should be a quart, but it's blue, so it distresses me that it doesn't match. So this is the quart, the pint, the half pint, and the quarter pint, but these are also known as jelly jars. And I think, forget which one is actually marketed as jelly jar. In my family, they're both called jelly jars. So yeah, so that's the sizes. So if you have a larger family, you might be doing things all in the bigger jars. If you have a smaller family, because I try to gauge the size of my jars based on how much I'm going to use it. So something like applesauce, if you're doing it for Thanksgiving dinner, or you're giving it to people where they're going to have like 4 people at a table when they open it, you might want to do the big jars because it
Mhm.
saves you time in the long run, because again, you can fit 4 jars regardless of whether they're this jar or this jar.
Mhm.
So, but if you're doing something like pickles where they're going to sit around for a while, or if they're smaller pieces, so if you're doing like tiny pickles, whole pickles that are small, you might want to do, you might want to match it to the height of your pickles. If you're going to chop them up, then it doesn't matter. And
Okay.
jelly, again, are usually in the smaller jars, because who really needs a jar this much jelly, you know? So,
Yeah. And I guess, yeah,
that's why,
preference too of like what kind of foods you like and how much you eat them. And
yes,
so
yes.
when you're canning, you do it, is because I know like some people do things for hobbies and what's like, are you doing it specifically for because you like to do it, because you want to make sure you have for emergency situations, or a little bit of both, or what?
Pretty much to preserve, just to prevent waste.
Okay.
Especially fresh produce, because fresh produce is expensive, especially when you have
Yes.
the good local produce. You want to take something that's in season, and you want to save it. So that's why, like I said, with the apples, like you all get to the point in the fall, the apples taste delicious because they're
Mhm.
fresh, they're from the orchards. You took the kids apple picking. Well, then why not take that a step further? And when you bring the apples home, like my mother-in-law always made fresh applesauce for Thanksgiving. So then when we have applesauce left over, or apples left over from the applesauce, and everybody's sick of eating apples, then you can make your apple topping or your applesauce or your apple butter
Yeah.
and can it. So that was always what it was for me, because I
Mhm.
hate to see food go to waste.
Yeah.
I've had periods of my life where there was some food scarcity and some insecurity, periods of unemployment or whatnot, where
Mhm.
food was hard to come by, and I just don't like to waste food. So,
Yeah.
so that's what it is for me. But if you have a
Agreed.
large family, it could just be economics.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you have an ethnic heritage like Italians, they like to make their own tomato sauce. They like to grow their own tomatoes. They like that connection at that's part of the whole Sunday gravy,
Yes.
so
I never
it's
called it
just,
gravy.
so yeah.
White belt
So
does.
so yeah, the word was very intentional there, tomato
Yes,
gravy, like,
gravy.
so yeah, so that's what it is for me.
Okay.
So yeah, if you wanted to, so if you had apples and you wanted to make apple butter, just to give a succinct little example of how the process would work, and you'll get a recipe out of it too.
Okay.
Google an exact recipe to get how much stuff to put in. But I peeled my apples, chopped and peeled my apples, and I put them in my big crock pot, which is now broken, so I don't have it anymore.
Mm.
And if you like it sweetened, you can put a little bit of honey, you can put a little bit of sugar, leave it in the crock pot, and after what, like 6 to 8 hours, you end up with applesauce. Really, that's all there is to applesauce. If you leave it there for like 24 hours, the crock pot will just keep going down and it'll keep getting browner, and then you have apple butter. That's all it is. So
Oh,
if you're sick of eating apples and you can only eat so much applesauce, keep cooking it. Like, I literally would stop it halfway, take some out, can applesauce,
okay.
and then keep it going and use the rest as apple butter. So
Okay.
um, so the process of canning is then I use the dishwasher for the first step, which is to sterilize the jars. So you put all your canning equipment. I even try to get the pot in just to make sure you get all your canning equipment, put it in the dishwasher, put it in the high, like the heated dry setting to keep
Mm.
everything warm. And then while your dishwasher's going, and you don't even, I put soap in, but if you know everything's clean, you probably don't even have to put soap in. And this is out of order, and I should have said it sooner and I forgot. If you're canning vegetables and you're using vinegar, please check your store vinegar, because I'm hearing now from people, and I haven't seen it yet, but apparently now vinegar manufacturers are lowering the acidity of the vinegar. They're diluting it more because of the cost of everything.
I've heard that
So
too.
you want 5% vinegar for canning purposes, and that's really important because that's part of what keeps it safe. So,
Okay.
yeah, but
That's
for
good to know.
apples, we don't need vinegar. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so yeah. So everything's in the dishwasher getting clean. And if you were canning something that needed to be cooked first, because we want the jars and the water and the food that's going inside the jars to all be as close in temperature as possible, again, to prevent any shock to the jars. So since everything's in the crock pot for the apple butter, I don't need to heat it up. But if I were doing something like my cabbage that I showed you,
Mhm.
that I actually boiled, and that was partially because I wanted it soft, because cabbage is crunchy cabbage.
Mhm.
Wasn't gonna work for me, but anyway. So I kept it on the stove on low to keep it warm. So now my food is warm, my dishes are warm and staying warm in the dishwasher because I leave them in there the whole time.
Mhm.
I take out my canning supplies and I fill it up with water so that once my jars end up in, it's submerged. So if you're doing smaller jars, you probably only need half a pot of water. If you're doing these bigger jars, you probably want to have 3/4 of water. And then once they're boiling, you're good to go.
Mhm.
So you've got boiling water on the stove, you've got food warm somewhere, you've got your jars warm in the dishwasher. I
Okay.
put tea towels on the top of my dishwasher so that when they come out, the jars come out of the pot, they can go onto the tea towel, just so, again, less shock to the jar. And
Mhm.
if I have to wipe something off of it, or if it's hot, I have the tea towels on to help me with that. So then to fill your food, again, preferably plastic or something that's not going to cut the jars, you take your spoon, you grab your funnel. I'm going to use a bigger jar so there's more room.
Mhm.
So you have your jar and your funnel and your spoon, and your funnel is, you spoon it in there, make sure it all gets in there, and then you're carefully going to pull this out. And again, I keep a separate tea towel over here to the side to keep this on between things. You're going to set it down. You're going to set it down. So we're pretending this is full of food. I'll grab this tea towel. Now I want to make sure it's a clean tea towel, but we're just gonna pretend. So I'm just gonna make sure, and you can use paper towels, but I try to eliminate as much waste as I can. You're
Mhm.
just gonna wipe off this thing. I often will get, well, because I have this ring, we're gonna switch this jar because I've got this ring ready.
Mhm.
So making sure it's clean. I often keep these in warm water so that they stay warm, so that the seal is a little warm, but you don't want it too hot because you don't want it to actually melt. You're carefully put, now remember, this jar's got hot food in it, so it's gonna be a little warm.
Mhm.
You're gonna make sure it's really on there, and then you're gonna put your ring on. And I really do hold on to my tea towel in the other hand while I'm doing this, just in case it suddenly gets too hot or something. I can just kind of do this instead.
Yeah.
But yes, and then so now my jar is in there. I want to check this. I'm pretending it's hot. I'm going to check this. I want it tight, but not too tight. I don't want it to move around, but I also don't want it so tight that the steam can't escape. Excuse me, as my phone is ringing. We're going to decline that. Oh, no, I didn't. I accidentally answered it.
Mhm.
I don't think I did. Okay, I figured that out. All right. So now we're going to put our little, remember, so this pot now, we're going to pretend this pot has boiling water in it.
Mhm.
We're gonna be very careful not to burn ourselves, put as close to the edge as we can. And then once we get all 4 of them done, I tend to put mine in one at a time. You can also line them up and then do them all 4. We'll put the lid on. And then we're gonna make sure it stays boiling, but once it gets really vigorously boiling, we might adjust the heat so it doesn't like throw the lid off or anything.
Yeah.
But we want to keep it boiling. Set our timer usually for 20 minutes or so. Again, it depends on your recipe. Your
Okay.
recipe is going to tell you the time, because depending on the density of the food, it might need more or less time to kill the organisms inside.
Okay.
And then when it's all done, we're going to very carefully grab our pot holder and take them out. And again, you could just grab this, but I usually do it with this anyway because
Mhm.
I don't want them clinking around.
Mhm.
And then you just wait for it to seal, and then when it's all done, it cools off after like 15-20 minutes, or if you're impatient like me, way too soon, I remove my rings because I like to see underneath, make sure that it got a good seal. So then I'm going to examine my jar and just kind of look at it a little bit, make
Uh-huh.
sure it's all good. Once it cools off, you can even move it a little bit, but I don't do that until it's really cold.
Okay.
And then you could just, and then I may or may not loosely put, once they're cool, put my rings back on. If I know I'm keeping them, I take them off, because for storage purposes, I like to be able to see in that space where there's air and the food, to see what the top of the food looks like, to see underneath my seal, which actually skip over to the one that actually has food in it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I can keep an eye on this area underneath the food, make sure the lid's still on properly, and just kind of make sure it looks, because you can see like there's food up there that's kind of stuck in there, and you kind of make sure it looks good. But if I'm going to give it away as a gift or just to share, I'm going to leave the ring on because I don't know if the person I'm giving it to wants to transfer it to another container or if they're just going to leave it in and use the ring as an
Okay.
actual lid. But that's pretty much all there is to it. But the keys are just being consistent, making sure you keep everything clean because you don't want to introduce bacteria or organisms to your food.
Mhm.
And then,
Did you say you do one at a time? You do one jar?
I'm sorry, what was that, Donna?
Did you say that you do one jar at a time?
Well, I do. I fill them one jar at a time, put
Right.
them in, fill the next one, put it in,
Oh, I
and then
got
when
it.
I have
Okay.
all 4 in, I process
So you
them
don't just
together.
do one and boil it for
Yeah.
20.
I fill them one at a time and don't leave them set to the side because I don't want them to cool off.
Makes
And I
sense.
know logically they're hot enough that they're not going to cool off, but it
Yeah.
just makes me feel better to keep them in the
Yeah.
hot water. It's not going to kill them to have a little extra processing time.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
Wow. That's
so yeah.
That's interesting. I love it. I love it.
So
Thank you for sharing that with us. And we, like we said in the beginning, this is just an introduction.
mhm.
And Angel's going to do a little bit more for us in the near future, hopefully when she has time.
Yeah,
And
we're hoping that I'll actually incorporate the slideshow, which Donna, please feel free to share with people.
yeah,
And what I'll do is when I have something to can, because I don't right now, if I see something I mean, this might be a case where I actually go to the store and buy something to can,
okay.
but actually I will can something and go through the steps and show you the individual steps and kind of splice that together with the slideshow so that you can see the information. But it's just really important that if you get involved in food preservation, that you know where your information is coming from. There's a lot of Facebook groups. I was actually talking about this with Donna when we were setting this up. There's a lot of groups that will can dairy products, which is not considered safe. I've
Mhm.
seen people actually can milk and butter. Some of the people that can milk say that then they can open up smaller containers of it and it changes the texture a little, but not enough to bother them. And I saw another woman talking about the fact that she lives in Alaska, so in the winter she can't get out. So by canning her butter that she buys at the store,
Mm.
it allows her the chance to keep it on the shelf versus in the refrigerator because she has more room that way.
Okay.
Again, not stuff the USDA deems safe, but I'm sure they have processes that work for them and they've
Yeah.
tested them, and through trial and error, they know they're safe. But
Right.
if you are participating in any of that kind of canning, just know that you're taking a risk and, be cautious until you know it's safe. Like
Mhm.
if you know it works for you, and we're all different individuals. So
Right.
maybe my system can't take the introduction of a certain bacteria or
Mhm.
as much as another person can.
Yes,
And the
exactly.
dog's at it again.
That's okay.
So,
Well, thank you so much. And I really do look forward to what you're going to do with the slideshow and definitely get that
yeah.
information out to
And if
you.
anybody has questions, I'm fairly easy to find on the internet, even if we don't remember to put an email address at the bottom, which I'm more than happy to share.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So,
But because
yeah,
conversation is great and talking to each other and just
Mhm.
learning from each other. But
Yes.
water bath canning is a great way to do it with mostly stuff you have at home. Like if you invest
good.
in a basic canning kit to get the little basket, that's really like all you need other than the actual jars. And you can just
Mhm.
keep a couple of jars in your house. So when the opportunity pops up, you're ready.
Right.
And that's why I'm starting to get nervous. 'Cause I'm like, I definitely have to get some more canning lids. But
Well,
yeah.
it sounds like a great way to get started. And so thank you once again. You'll send me your links. We'll put them down below, everybody, in the description. And if you have questions
That's
for
fantastic.
Angel, please feel free to reach out to her. And yeah, and
Yep.
don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit the notifications bell. Please help us help other people. All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Donna.
And
This has been
we'll
wonderful.
see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. And look for go on and check out the other books that she has available. We need to get back to reading, like holding the book in our hands.
Yes. Less blue light in our lives.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. We should do a discussion about that. Anyway, we'll see you guys on the next discussion. Ciao.